Good morning, everybody. Good morning. How's everybody doing today? Glad to have you join me. Doing a session a little bit earlier today than usual, simply because we have a classroom starting at 9, so I didn't want to disturb the class. But just let me know if you can hear me okay. If we can start by clicking the like button, I'd appreciate it. So let's take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin's dropping, and some of the members will remember that we were talking about Bitcoin when it was up in this area here, and a conversation that I had with a friend of mine in believing that price was going to continue higher from this area. So as I was mentioning to my friend, yes, could that happen? Yes, it can happen, but the problem with that is, we have to make our decisions based on things that we know to be true, not things that we hope to be true. And when price was up in this area here, for it to continue going higher, we would have to be hoping that the banks came in and started buying. That's the only way that price would have started rallying from these highs. All right? It's the only way. Why is that? Well, because the banks move price in a very specific way. They create structures on the chart, ascending, descending structures, and they use their supply and demand to facilitate moves higher or lower depending on the trend. So in this case here we had price rallying up, but we located this area here as a demand zone. So when price came down and broke through that area of demand, the question was, why would they be taking out their demand? If they had intentions to drive price even higher, why would they be taking out their demand zone? So they took this one out, they took this one out, okay? Yes, they took price a little bit higher, but again, they took out this demand area, price went lower. Then they took it higher. They had a demand zone they could have used to facilitate a move higher. It was not used to facilitate a move higher, and it dropped. Price down. And so now what do we have? Now we have the institutions creating a downtrend. Alright, so now that the institutions have created a downtrend, this is very scary. I mean, not scary for me, but if you were a trader of Bitcoin, I would not feel good in the slightest about there being a downtrend created by the banks right now. Okay? I would not feel good about that, because if we get a rally up like this, yeah, that will be really exciting for a lot of long people holding Bitcoin long, but we have a really nice area of supply here that could be used to facilitate a move much lower. So that is the problem with getting involved in Bitcoin right now. And as you probably know, if you've been searching the news, there's a lot of talk about Elon Musk, and he's not supporting Bitcoin right now. He was very supportive of Bitcoin down here. Alright, and now he's not supportive of Bitcoin. So do you see what's happening here? Can you see what's happening? The upward trend was very solid here. And then he gets involved in Bitcoin, and he's advertising how they will accept Bitcoin to purchase Tesla vehicles. So everybody's thinking, well, this is great news. If such a big player is going to allow Bitcoin to be used to purchase his vehicles, he really must be supporting this. He must really have a lot of confidence in Bitcoin. So that fueled the move up. Well, sure it would. Okay. How does the media get price to rally up and down in gold, oil, and any currency? By displaying confidence in it, right? So there's no difference with that. Only thing is, I think the spin that was used in this situation is, Elon Musk gives off this persona of being very hip and very in tune with, what is taking place these days. So I think they just used a character that really seemed to have that connection with what was modern to sell the idea of Bitcoin going higher. He admitted the whole thing was a hustle on SNL, really? He was making jokes in regards to that? Mm. So, so there's nothing different, right? They're just using different techniques, using different characters to sell. So, with all that being said, are we surprised that now, he's coming out and saying all this negative stuff? Not really, right? And this can continue lower. So, as I mentioned before to my friend, I said the only place that I would ever consider buying Bitcoin would have to be in this area here. Why? Because I know for a fact that this is an area where the banks were interested in buying Bitcoin. That's why. Plain and simple. Because I know this for a fact. So that is the only reason why I would start buying Bitcoin there. And even then, I would only be carrying it for a certain length of time. I would have targets up in this area somewhere, initial targets. And yeah, I would hold smaller positions and move my stop loss as the banks create, strength to the upside and new areas of demand. Sure, I would do that. But to buy when the institutions were breaking their ascending trends on the daily chart, that was a very bad idea. So those who got in at the 55,000, 54,000, 56,000 range, which I know my buddy did, now it's at 44. That's a big hit. And, I hear a lot of talk about, oh, I'm going to remortgage my house and put everything I own in Bitcoin. I mean, that's a big, big mistake. Big mistake. So, very dangerous game to play right now because people don't understand the level of corruption and the level of manipulation that takes place in the markets, especially when you don't know. I mean, it's like, would you play cards with an expert poker hustler if you had no edge whatsoever? No, you wouldn't. Would you play cards with an expert poker hustler if you knew what his cards were at every step of the way? Yeah, you probably would, right? Because you have an edge, because you know what his cards are. So it's the same thing with trading. If you don't know that if you know that there's no supply up here and you don't know where it's going to reverse down, how could you get involved in something? You don't know where it's going to go. So not a good idea. And so now a lot of people are paying the price for it. And I feel bad for them, but what can you do? What can you do? On the other hand, we have markets that are moving in the direction that we, have been anticipating. And why is that? Because we're playing cards with a poker player and we get to see all their cards. So that is why price is now moving in the directions that we believe they would. Because when you know the hand that they're holding, you know what they're likely going to play, what cards they're likely going to play, how they're going to react. So then that gives you the edge of where to enter into your trades and or what to wait for in terms of when to play your bluffs, when to play your cards. All right, so so gold is looking really strong now, and we talked about gold in some detail in one of our classes. We talked about this structure here that we are watching, and once this gets broken to the upside, price is going to be entering into some new dimension. Okay, a new dimension here up at the top. Whether it creates an uptrend or not, that is what we're still waiting to see. Okay, but there's a very good chance that it starts to do that. So gold is looking really promising. Central banks will ban cryptocurrencies and they'll implement own. Yeah, that's a good observation. Very likely that does happen. We'll see. Because they're all coming out with their digital currencies now, right? So why would they want to have competition? Remember with Bitcoin, they got involved in Bitcoin a while ago when they brought it to the markets, when they brought it to the futures market. And that allowed them to control it. So what's the reason why they want to control it if they're coming out with their own digital currencies, right? To crash it, maybe. It's a possibility. So we wait and see. Oil, we talked about this in great length, what it's doing right now, what it's stuck in, so we're just going to wait. It's not a good chart to trade. In terms of the dollar, I mean, we were looking at the data, the CFTC data. We released a report on it. I did make our report for members, the EURUSD report, which details what they're doing with their positions and what we are expecting going forward. So we're seeing it pause here. Likely that we can get a little push to the upside. You know, if you remember, US CAD has recently dropped quite significantly. All right. So at times like this, we typically will see a reversal. So nothing on the charts to really dictate a move to the upside, but this is what happens with price. Price drops, creates areas of supply, eventually it runs out of steam and then reverses. And it's typically the retail traders that are getting in late, and that's when you get the retracements up. Price is dropping, creating supply by the banks. You know, when it's too late, then they come in and say, oh, well, look, this is coming down, let's just start shorting now so we don't miss the rest of the move. And of course, that's when it's too late. Central banks not making any money out of cryptocurrencies. Is that what you feel, or is that what you know to be true? Let's take a quick look at Bitcoin again. Central banks never allow citizens to bypass their local currencies. You remember here? This is when Bitcoin was brought into the futures market. Okay? Meaning now you could short it. And then what happened? Okay? What happened here? What's starting to happen here? So, who do you think is getting involved in Bitcoin at these stages with such power that it causes it to drop? If they didn't care about, you know, Bitcoin, they wouldn't have brought it to the futures market. They wouldn't care. They wouldn't be looking at it. The only reason why they brought it in was because they saw so many people getting involved in it and they saw a great opportunity. So I'd beg to differ. I've been studying what it looks like when the banks get involved in markets, and that to me is a perfect example of what it looks like when the banks get involved in the markets. That's not a couple hedge funds doing that, I'll tell you that much. So US CAD looks like it can reverse up. You know, it looks like it could reverse up. Nothing guaranteed, so that's the bit of the unknown coming into this week. Is, do we see a reversal on the dollar after this nice significant move on the US CAD? Do we see a reversal? It's possible, but there's question marks in regards to that move. Okay, let's take a look at the Aussie. I won't be very long in today's session because I will be preparing for our class at 9 a.m. Saw a head and shoulder pattern on Bitcoin daily. Yeah. Aussie, so Aussie just sitting at the highs. We talked about this in detail in the report. Aussie CAD, we saw some nice weakness coming in because of the strength on the Canadian dollar. It still has room to drop if it wants to. It can come down below the 90s, that's for sure. That's for sure. There's a good chance of that. CAD yen. So CAD yen was a long signal. It's doing extremely well. We got targets higher up. But if US CAD is going to reverse, then we can start to see a little bit of a pullback, which is not the end of the world. Euro. So euro holding that trend very nicely on the daily chart. This was something that we pointed out to members. This was a trend created by the banks. Okay. A trend created by the banks and being supported by the banks right here at the test of the trend line. So this is something that we've talked about in class, where typically when price comes down to an ascending trend line, if it's not supported by institutional demand, then the trend line is not going to hold. So at spots like this on the chart, the only thing that will hold up price is the banks coming in to buy. Okay, that is the only thing that will hold up price. So let me show you something. Let me just open up my data and I'll show you something in case you guys didn't get a chance to look at the latest data from the banks. Let's bring in the euro. So take a look at that. Okay, there's the buying that we were expecting from the banks. 206,000 long to 223,000 aggressive, well over the average size. This is good, very good, to support the buying that we wanted to see here. Okay, so that's very good support. Now next week's data will really show us what was happening in the latest candles, but I could already tell that they were buying because of what's happening on the chart. They're definitely buying. So this is looking good, and we expect that in the future we will see more upside. Okay, but short term, could there be a slight drop? Sure. Again, because of what we're seeing with the US CAD. Alright, so a little bit unpredictable at this stage because some nice moves took place, but now it's like, let's just wait and be patient and make sure that it's going to actually continue. Because it doesn't have to at this point. It can, pull back. We look at the pound. The pound is also one that has given us some nice strength off the weekly ascending trend line. We've talked about this again as well. Holding that trend line and pushing price upwards. Testing an area of supply once again, so it'll take some time to eat through this, but we do believe that eventually it will eat through it. Okay, price came down, hit a 4-hour area of demand, and not sure if there was a trade here. I think I looked at this already, but let me double check. Yeah, there was a trade here. So again, people ask, oh, using your methodology, using your system, is this good for locating trades? Well, you tell me. Here is a trade right here. The trade was stop loss here, enter into the position above that area of institutional demand, and okay, look, it's pretty good move away. Comes down, enters into the area of demand, enter in long. You're down for about a half an hour in your position, and then the rest of the move is all the way up. So that was a really good trade there. Okay, that one was good. Oh, 4-hour. So what do you guys think? What is your best advice on US CAD H4 daily chart? Best advice in terms of what? Dollar reversal, if it happens, will be short-lived. Yeah, I agree. A Kiwi, a little bit of weakness this morning. Why is that? Well, because it's contacting supply that's previously been contacted, right? So we're getting that weakness. And if you guys want to look at any charts before I let you go, now's the time to throw them out. And if you haven't yet, hit that like button. I would appreciate it. And let's see. Bitcoin, quick look at that. See if it's still doing. Yeah, it might pull up a little bit, but that's about it. Euro yen, I think, is going to be the next one that's going to shoot to the moon. Okay, Euro yen. So keep an eye on that one. It's setting up quite nicely to shoot up really hard. You know, like I mentioned on the Euro US dollar, we might get a slight pullback. But once the momentum comes into the markets, because right now there's a little bit of momentum, you know, foundation is being built, okay? When you're building a foundation, you got to build it slowly. It takes time. Make sure it's very strong and solid. But once that foundation is built and you start building above it, it just will fly. So we're watching for that real momentum to come in. Once the real momentum comes in, on the euro, for instance, this sucker is going to take off. So we're watching this one. This one's on the watch list. We know exactly what to watch for. Once the signal is there, I'll be sending it out on the watch list, and we have targets already outlined for this chart. Pound US dollar, yeah, we just looked at pound US dollar. You know, would I want to trade pound US dollar now? No, I wouldn't want to. No. Because if there was a position I was going to hold, it would be long. But not in this circumstance. I wouldn't be long on this circumstance. Not ideal. Aussie yen. This one's not the greatest chart either. We do see potential for more upside once the Aussie kicks in with momentum, because that one is lacking for sure. The Aussie hasn't kicked in the momentum yet, so it's not really ideal. Let's look at this SPY, see what's going on. Slight pullback, now rallying back up. Let's look at the daily chart here. So let's take a look at if there's a trend line. Okay, right here. So we're seeing this at the trend line, okay, which tells us this trend line's no good. So let's adjust. That's likely the scenario now in terms of where the trend lines are at. And let's do a little bit of work here. Okay, so we got this situation going on here. That's institutional supply up there. Okay, I just did a quick analysis of this area here, and this is definitely institutional supply. So it can do this. Okay, that's definitely a possibility. And we could see more downside. The structure on the daily chart is broken, so that leaves the weekly and the monthly charts now. And weekly is still holding a trend with demand by the banks located here to help hold it up. Excuse me. So that could be in play, a push lower. If not, we need to wait for new structures to be built, and that is not happening now. So if you trade the SPY and you like going long, now wouldn't be a good time. But you see, traders see this bounce up and they say, oh, it's bouncing up, buy the dip, buy the dip. They don't even realize how dangerous doing that would be. Very dangerous. So be careful with that. Dow Jones, what is it looking like? Similar situation. Yeah, similar situation. And let me just take a look here at the charts. We have this situation. Same thing. Institutional supply was created here at these highs. And this trend is broken. So the other structure that we have is this. Okay, could price go lower and then reverse? Yeah, possible. Can it go higher from here? Yes, it's possible, but we need to see that the banks are doing that first. We need to see the structure being created, and so far that's not there. So staying away from it, it would be a better idea. Okay. All right, short and sweet. I hope this session was somewhat helpful to you out there, whatever you're trading. Again, if you can hit the like button, I would appreciate it. If you want to take a look at other charts, leave some comments below. I always will check them out and see what it is that you'd like to take a look at. And I'll leave you for now, and enjoy the rest of your day. Students, we'll see you in about 13 minutes. All right, make sure you send your homework, and we'll do that very soon.